I want to help you out, okay? Because skill builds haven't been the same since the capacitor came out. I mean, not even 𝐸 will make your skill build more complete when using skills primarily. For me, it all started with Flatline, then Fresh, then King. Oh boy, I could go on and on describing the pleasure I felt using those builds. And as I continued to make them, I realized something. They were all skill builds, but hit as hard as a DPS, and the skills were still very strong. So I slowly converted to this style of making skill builds. And when I went back to the old way, I realized it wasn't nearly as effective. Here's what I mean. You would naturally think that when making a skill build, rolling skill damage and skill haste with an 𝐸 talent weapon are the way to go. Well, I think you're wrong. Respectfully. I think we've evolved since then. And with that in mind, I want you to understand it like I do. When have you ever seen a skill build melt a DPS player like this? Not to mention me maintaining strong skills. I mean, who wouldn't want this, especially if you main skill builds? This is due to the capacitor and memento completely changing the dynamics of how skill builds work. I say it again, they've evolved. Now let's take the capacitor and memento out of the picture for a second, and when looking at it from that perspective, it totally makes sense to roll skill haste and skill damage with an 𝐸 weapon talent. But doing that now is just wasting stats. So here's where it'll all make sense. Let's break down the capacitor first so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. This is a DPS weapon, okay? You have to pay attention to the details. Why in the world would the devs add crit chance and damage directly on the weapon attachments themselves? These are exotic attachments, which are here for a reason. I think they're trying to tell us something, that we need to synergize this with our skill builds, and that's not all. Did you know that it's suggested to have a shotgun equipped while using a skill build to utilize its damage to armor applied to skills simply for having it equipped? Because a shotgun is the only weapon type that comes with 12% damage to armor as an attribute. But wait, the capacitor has that too, and it's the only assault rifle with this. It's been given an attribute only exclusive to shotguns. That means that this weapon is in a league of its own, really. Now, with this in mind, it would be foolish for me not to build this accordingly. Don't roll skill haste and skill damage. Roll crit chance and crit damage. This will first of all kill the notion that all skill players do are sit behind their drone and turret letting them do all the work. I mean, if that's what you prefer, then to each its own. But for those of you who want to totally embrace the essence of the Division 2's combat objective, then this is how you want to do it. Now, you're probably wondering, where do you get your skill damage from, right? Because it is a skill build after all. Well, I'll tell you, and that's the last thing I'll say about the capacitor before moving on to memento. Now, if you have the capacitor equipped, it's as if you have the damage of a DPS and 40% skill damage, which you'll need to stack by shooting enemies, which is okay because it gives you an incentive to use your weapon. The 40% covers more than half of the skill damage you would have otherwise rolled as an attribute. Now the other half, and even more, is what the memento backpack gives you. After it's all said and done, this backpack grants 60% skill efficiency. And if you didn't know, skill efficiency gives you every skill attribute you can think of. 60% of it. More than what you need for your skills to absolutely melt anything in sight. And that's not even counting the short-term buff you get from just picking up a trophy, which will also help your survivability with bonus armor for having 1.1 million armor. This is due to the technician specialization giving you an extra skill tier along with Memento's armor core. This means that you can roll one armor core without losing anything. Not even a DPS build can do that, man. Now look, I'm not trying to put down DPS builds. I'm a connoisseur of them, along with any other builds I enjoy making. I just want you and I to expand our horizons when it comes to skill builds. Go look at this build right here to get a prime example of what I'm talking about. And just so you know, I'm most likely going to make another version of that because there are a few changes I need to make, mainly the chest piece. I'm not satisfied with it. I need to make that build reach its full potential by making it the best it can be. So stay tuned for it. Be right out.